Hi, and welcome to English-Fabule. Are you learning English? Great. Let's learn English with a very interesting story. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. Let's get started.
A terrible disaster has happened in Beijing, the capital city of China. At the end of July, very heavy rain started to fall. The rain continued for several days without stopping. This caused large floods across the city and in the areas around it. Busy neighborhoods, usually full of people and cars, were suddenly under a lot of water. The streets turned into brown, muddy rivers, and many cars were underwater. It was a shocking event for everyone living there. The floods were very dangerous and caused a lot of sadness. At least 30 people in Beijing died because of the powerful water. Other people died in nearby areas too. The rain was so strong that experts called it a rain trap. This happened because the mountains near Beijing trapped the wet air. The clouds could not move away, so all the rain fell in the same place for a long time. It was a very unusual and destructive storm. The city received nearly a year's worth of rain in less than 1 week. Because of the great danger, the government had to act quickly. More than 80,000 people were told to leave their homes. They had to move to safer places because the flood waters were still rising. Many houses were badly damaged or completely filled with water and mud. People lost their homes and everything they owned. The floods also destroyed important things like roads and power lines. This made it very difficult to travel or to talk to family and friends using phones. The Chinese government called the situation a major crisis. The President of China, Xi Jinping, asked for all-out rescue work. This means he wanted everyone to work as hard as possible to save people. Police and rescue teams were sent to help those who were trapped by the high water. The government also started to plan how to help the thousands of people who now had no home. This terrible flood was a serious warning. It showed how vulnerable even a large, modern city can be to extreme weather. 2. What the flood did. The worst problems from the flood were not in the busy city center. The areas in the mountains around Beijing had the most damage. The shape of the mountains made the floods more powerful and dangerous. A district in the northeast called Miyun was hit the hardest. In Miyun, the rain was very heavy for days. Entire villages disappeared under several feet of muddy water. Another mountain area to the northwest, Yanqing district, also had very serious floods and damage. The strong, fast water caused a lot of destruction to important structures. Dozens of roads were broken and washed away. This made it very difficult for cars and rescue teams to travel to the villages that needed help. The floods also cut the electricity to more than 130 villages. With no power, homes were dark and people could not use their phones. This made it hard to get news or call for help. Communication was a very big problem. Travel was also difficult because hundreds of flights at the airports were stopped and many trains could not run. For many people, the water came with no warning. Survivors said it happened very suddenly and was very fast. Some people woke up very early in the morning, around 4 or 5 o'clock. They were shocked to find water already high inside their houses. One person from a small town said, "The flood came rushing in, so fast and suddenly." In just a short time, the water was everywhere. There was no time to move furniture or other things to a safe place. People had to leave their homes very quickly to save their own lives. Thousands of homes and buildings were destroyed by the deep water. In one grocery shop, watermarks on the walls showed the flood was 1.5 meters high. That is almost as tall as a person. The shop owner lost all of her food and drinks. A nearby restaurant owner lost his expensive refrigerators and other kitchen machines. Because so many homes were gone or unsafe, over 80,000 people in Beijing had to leave. They were moved to safer places like schools. 17,000 of these people were from Miyun district alone. They could not go back to their homes. 3. Losing money and food. The flood created huge money problems for many people. This disaster was very expensive for the country. Many farms and local businesses were completely destroyed by the water and mud. People lost their way to make a living. The biggest problems were in the countryside areas. Many farms are now under thick, wet mud. Farmers worked hard all year to grow their crops. Corn was an important food for them. The corn plants were tall and almost ready for the harvest. But the strong floodwaters pushed all the plants down. Now the fields are just mud with rotting plants. For the farmers, this is a terrible loss. They need the corn to feed their families and to sell at the market. A farmer named Guo Shuwen looked at her broken fields. She cried because she had lost everything. She said that it is very difficult for ordinary people to earn money. Another farmer, whose surname is Wang, told a sad story. Her family had many geese and ducks. The flood brought so much mud that all of the birds were buried and died. Losing animals and crops means these families now have no income. The flood did not only hurt farmers. In the small towns, many local shops and restaurants also have big problems. The water came so fast that owners could not save their things. A 33-year-old woman named Zhai owns a small grocery shop. The water came into her shop and was 1.5 meters high. Her entire shop was underwater for many hours. All her products, like food and drinks, were ruined. This is a big financial loss for her family business. Nearby, a restaurant owned by a woman named Liu was also full of water. Her husband estimated their losses were more than 100,000 yuan. Big, expensive machines like refrigerators were in the dirty water for a long time. They are probably broken and cannot be fixed. For families like Liu's and Zhai's, the future is very difficult. It will take a long time to recover, and they may not have the money to start again. 4. Helping people. After the flood, thousands of people needed help. The government called for a big rescue operation. Many different groups came to help, including police and emergency workers. These teams worked day and night to save people from the dangerous water. The work was not easy. The rescue teams moved over 100,000 people from their homes to safer places. They also rescued more than 400 people who were in immediate danger from the rising floods. The conditions were very difficult. In some towns, the water was so deep that it came up to the workers' chests. They had to walk carefully through the cold, muddy water. They used small boats to evacuate people from their flooded houses. In one rescue, they helped older people leave a nursing home that was full of water. For villages that were completely cut off by broken roads, helicopters were very important. They flew over the flooded areas to bring supplies. These helicopters dropped packages of clean drinking water, food, and essential medicine to people who had nothing. But the help did not always come in time. The flood was very sudden. For many people, especially in small villages in the mountains, there was no warning. They did not get a message on their phones or hear an alarm. Some residents said they woke up in the middle of the night to find water already inside their houses. This lack of an early warning made the disaster much worse for them. Another serious problem was communication. The powerful storm broke power lines and telephone poles. This meant there was no electricity or phone service in many places. Without power, people could not charge their phones. The internet also stopped working. It was almost impossible to call for help or get information. In some areas, emergency trucks came to provide a little power. People stood in lines, waiting to charge their phones just to send one message. Because of this, many families were separated and could not contact each other. People were very worried about their loved ones. They did not know if their parents, children, or friends were safe. Many people who worked in the city had family in the flooded villages. They tried to call for days but could not get through. They could only wait and hope that the rescue teams would find their families and that they were okay. 5. The science of the rain. People wanted to understand why the rain was so heavy. It was not a normal storm. Scientists explained that two main things happened together to create this disaster. It was a very unusual and dangerous event. The rainy season in northern China also started much earlier than normal this year, which made the situation worse. The first part of the problem started far away, over the ocean. A very strong storm, a typhoon, was moving there. This typhoon did not hit Beijing directly. Instead, it acted like a giant fan. It pushed huge amounts of warm, wet air towards northern China. This air, full of water from the ocean, traveled for a long distance. It was like a river of moisture in the sky. For days, this wet air kept moving towards the city, providing the fuel for the terrible rain. Without this constant flow, the storm would not have been so long or strong. The second part of the problem was the land around Beijing. The city is in a special location. It has tall mountains on its north and west sides. These mountains are like a big natural wall. In the past, these mountains helped protect the city, but this time they became a very big problem. When the wet air from the typhoon arrived, the mountains blocked it. The air could not continue to move west. It was completely trapped in the area around the city. This created a rain trap. The trapped air, full of water, had nowhere to go except up. The mountains forced the air to rise high into the sky. As the air went higher, it got much colder. This cold temperature quickly turned the huge amount of moisture into water droplets. This formed thick, heavy clouds that released an incredible amount of rain in one place. This process did not happen just once. For several days, the typhoon kept sending wet air, and the mountains kept trapping it. This meant that the rain fell over the same small areas again and again. It was a continuous, heavy downpour. Some places received 80 to 90% of their normal rain for an entire year in just a few days. The city's systems, like drains and rivers, are not built to handle so much water so quickly. It was a terrible combination of nature's power that nobody was prepared for. 6. Bad weather is happening more. The terrible flood in Beijing is not just one single event. It is a sign of a bigger problem. This problem is happening all over the world. The Earth's climate is changing, and it is getting warmer. This extra heat changes the air and the oceans. It gives more energy to storms. This makes weather more extreme and more dangerous for everyone. It means that events like the Beijing flood could happen more often. China is seeing these changes very clearly. In recent years, the country has had many kinds of extreme weather. The summers are hotter than people can remember. Also, very large floods are becoming more common. During the same summer as the Beijing flood, other parts of China had different problems. Some areas had record-high temperatures. Other areas also had terrible floods. It felt like the whole country was fighting extreme weather. This is a new and worrying pattern. For example, just 2 years ago, a huge storm hit Beijing. It happened in the year 2023. At that time, people said it was the heaviest rain in 140 years. That storm was very bad and killed at least 33 people. Everyone hoped a storm like that would not happen again for a very long time. But now, only 2 years later, an even stronger storm has come. This shows the problem is getting worse, and it is getting worse very quickly. The weather is changing in strange ways. The north of China, where Beijing is usually a dry place. It does not normally get a lot of rain. But now, this area is seeing more and more floods. The old, predictable weather patterns are disappearing. A weather pattern is what the weather is usually like each season. But these old patterns are broken. Now, a storm can stay in one place for many days without moving. This pours a huge amount of rain on a small area, causing terrible flash floods. These new weather patterns are a serious challenge. Our cities were built for the weather of the past. The roads, drains, and buildings in a city like Beijing were not designed for this much water. The old systems are not strong enough for these new, powerful storms. The flood is a very serious warning. It tells us that the old, calm weather is gone. We must prepare for a future with more big storms, more floods, and more danger. This is the new reality. 7. Problems with the city. The heavy rain and the flood showed that the city of Beijing had some big problems. The city was very modern, but it was not ready for a storm this large. The disaster made people ask important questions about how the city was built. One of the main problems was the city's drainage system. A drainage system is a group of pipes under the ground. These pipes carry rainwater away from streets and buildings. But during the storm, the rain was too heavy and fell too fast. The pipes could not take all the water. They filled up completely, and then they were overwhelmed. When the pipes were full, the water had nowhere to go. It stayed on the streets and went into people's homes. This made the flooding much worse. Another problem was how fast Beijing grew. In the last few decades, the city built many new houses, offices, and roads. This is called urban expansion. Some of these new buildings were built on land that was once a natural floodplain. A floodplain is a flat area next to a river where water goes when there is a flood. When you put buildings on this land, you stop the water from going there. The water must find a new place to go, which often means into towns and villages. To fight floods, Beijing had a plan called the Sponge City Project. The idea was to make parts of the city work like a sponge. A sponge can hold a lot of water. The project used special parks, green roofs, and permeable roads that could absorb rain. This plan helped a little, but the storm was just too powerful. The sponge city areas could not absorb the huge amount of water that fell. It was not enough for a disaster of this size. The flood also showed that not all parts of the city were equally safe. The center of Beijing had better protection, but the small towns and villages outside the city, especially in the mountains, were much more vulnerable. These areas did not have the same strong infrastructure, like good pipes or roads. The people in these rural areas were in more danger. The disaster was a clear sign that the city needed better plans to protect everyone, not just those in the center. 8. Looking to the future. This big flood is an important warning for China. The country must learn from this disaster to protect its people better. The storm showed that even big, modern cities are not always safe from extreme weather. Bad weather like this might happen more often in the future. It could become a new, difficult normal. So, old ways of planning for disasters are not good enough anymore. China will need to change how it builds its cities. City planners must think about the dangers of climate change. They need to build stronger drainage systems to move water away from homes and streets. They also need better systems to warn people before a big storm arrives. Good warning systems give people time to prepare or move to a safe place. Evacuation plans must also be improved, especially for people living in mountain villages far from the city center. The government will also have to help farmers. Their fields of corn and other crops were completely destroyed. They will need support to start again. They will also need new ways to protect their farms from future floods. Rebuilding everything will cost a lot of money. But the flood showed that it is smarter to spend money to prepare for disasters. It is much more expensive to fix everything after it is destroyed. Protecting cities now helps to save money and, more importantly, save lives later. This disaster is a lesson for the whole world. Countries can work together and share ideas on how to fight climate change. As the people of Beijing clean and rebuild, they will remember this event. It is a sad memory, but it must push leaders to build a safer future for everyone. What do you think is the most important lesson from this flood?
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.